All right, yo, what is going on? Ultra back here with another video. And today I'm going to be previewing the entire NFL season. I'm going to be predicting every division, the standings of each division. I'm going to be predicting the conference standings for both the AFC and the NFC. I will then be going through my playoff predictions for both the AFC and the NFC. Go give you who the AFC champion is going to be, give you who the NFC champion is going to be, give you the Super Bowl matchup, and going to give you who wins Super Bowl and the Super Bowl MVP. So you guys have probably watched NFL season prediction videos before, and you have no need for an introduction on why and what that is. So without further ado, let's get into the video. But before I do that, real quickly, make sure to go subscribe to this channel for more NFL content, as well as like this video. And go check out my social medias in the description below. I'm trying to get those ramped up a bit. So go check those out. They will be in the description. Go follow my Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat as well if you feel the need to. So with all of that said, let's get into my predictions. Let's start with the divisions and the division previews, starting with the AFC East. Here are my standings. I've already made a video on the AFC East and the NFC East, so I'm not going to break that down at all. I'll just let you guys go watch those videos. You can just check my channel. They're right there. They're literally the most recent videos that I've posted. So in the AFC East, first, I have the Buffalo Bills at 14-3. In second, I have the Miami Dolphins at 10-7. In third, I have the New England Patriots at 8-9. And in fourth, I have the New York Jets at 6-11. Moving on to the AFC North, I have the Cincinnati Bengals with their best offense in the NFL and pretty good defense and overall very well-balanced team and superstar quarterback Joe Burrow winning the division once again at 11-6, just edging out the Baltimore Ravens in that final Week 18 matchup, who also I have at 11-6 and returning to the playoffs. In third and fourth, the tie for third and fourth, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, I both have at 6-11, but I do have the Steelers getting that third spot and the Browns finishing fourth due to tiebreaker. Moving on to the AFC South, I have the Indianapolis Colts with Matt Ryan and Frank Reich and Jonathan Taylor and a very good defense winning the division at 11-6. I have the Tennessee Titans regressing and falling back to 8-9 and second in that division. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars finishing third in the division with 6-11. And I have the Houston Texans in fourth in the division at 2-15, a brutal record for them there. I think it's going to be a rough season for Houston. In the AFC West, I have the Los Angeles Chargers winning the division at 12-5. I have the Kansas City Chiefs finishing in second at 11-6. I have the Las Vegas Raiders finishing in third at 10-7. And I have the Denver Broncos finishing in fourth at 9-8. So that takes us to the standings. If we look at the overall standings, the division winners, the number one seed and the team with the bye will be the Buffalo Bills, who I have getting the number one seed. The Los Angeles Chargers will be the 2 seed. The Indianapolis Colts will be the 3 seed. And the Cincinnati Bengals will be the 4 seed. The Baltimore Ravens I have as the 5 seed. The Kansas City Chiefs I have as the 6 seed. And the Las Vegas Raiders I have as the 7 seed. Those will be your wild card teams. The in the hunt teams, the teams that just missed out in the playoffs, the Miami Dolphins in 8th, the Denver Broncos in 9th, the Tennessee Titans in 10th, the New England Patriots in 11th, and the Jacksonville Jaguars in 12th. And the worst teams, the teams that I expect to be at the bottom of the standings in the AFC this year, the Steelers in 13th, the Cleveland Browns in 14th, the New York Jets in 15th, and the Houston Texans in 16th, last place for the Texans. So the AFC playoffs, how are we looking? The Bills, of course, get the number one seed in the bye. That means the 2-7 matchup is the Los Angeles Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders divisional matchup. Another divisional matchup will be featured in the 4-5 matchup. That'll be between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. And the 3-6 matchup will be between Matt Ryan and the Indianapolis Colts against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now moving on to the NFC, my NFC East standings. I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning the division at 12-5, the Dallas Cowboys finishing in second at 8-9, regressing from a year ago. The New York Giants and the Washington Commanders tying at 7-10, but the Giants do get the tiebreaker and finish third, whereas the Commanders finish in fourth. The NFC North, I have the Green Bay Packers winning once again for the fourth straight year at 11-6. The Minnesota Vikings finishing second, just behind at 10-7. The Detroit Lions finishing in third at 6-11, and the Chicago Bears finishing fourth at 4-13. The NFC South, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the division at 13-4. The New Orleans Saints finishing in second at 9-8. The Carolina Panthers finishing in third at 6-11, and the Atlanta Falcons finishing in fourth at 3-14. And finally, for the NFC West, I have a tie here for the number one team in this division, but ultimately it's going to be the Super Bowl champion and the team that won it last season, the Los Angeles Rams, who comes out on top in this division at 12-5. The San Francisco 49ers finish in second, also at 12-5. The Arizona Cardinals finish in third at 7-10, and the Seattle Seahawks finish in fourth at 4-13. Meaning the NFC standings, the Buccaneers are the 1 seed with the bye. The 2 seed is the Rams, the 3 seed is the Eagles, and the 4 seed is the Packers. Those are your division winners. The wildcard teams, the 5 seed, the 49ers, the 6 seed, the Minnesota Vikings, and the 7 seed, the New Orleans Saints. The in the hunt teams, the 8 seed Dallas Cowboys, the 9 seed Arizona Cardinals, the 10 seed New York Giants, the 11 seed Washington Commanders, and the 12 seed Carolina Panthers. And the worst teams, the teams at the bottom of the standings, the 13 seed Detroit Lions, the 14 seed Seattle Seahawks, the 15 seed Chicago Bears, and the 16 seed Atlanta Falcons. Our NFC playoff matchups, if we go look at it, the number 1 seed, of course, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they get the bye. The 2-7 matchup, the Los Angeles Rams versus the New Orleans Saints. The 4-5 matchup, a rematch from last year. The 4 seed Green Bay Packers against the 5 seed San Francisco 49ers. The 3 seed versus the 6 seed, that'll be the 3 seeded Eagles hosting the 6 seeded Vikings in what should be interesting playoff matchups there. So there's my NFC predictions. All right, so starting with my 2-7 matchup in the AFC, I have the 7 seeded Las Vegas Raiders heading to Los Angeles to play the 2 seeded Chargers in what I think would be a very fun game and a game between two division rivals. Obviously, we saw this at the end of last season in a game that decided who would make the playoffs. The Raiders ended up beating the Chargers in a crazy overtime Sunday Night Football game, one of the best games of the season last year. Both teams are different. Both teams are better and more talented and more complete. I look at this matchup, though. I think the Chargers' defense has improved to the point that even with the improved Raiders' offense, they're going to cause some issues. The Raiders' offensive line is a weakness, and the Chargers have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, two of the best edge rushers in the game, and I think they'll be able to affect Derek Carr with the pressure. I also combine that with the fact that the Chargers' secondary is pretty good, and the Raiders, without their ability to quickly get separation, are going to be drastically affected, I believe, in the pass game. And I think that is going to affect how effective the Raiders' offense truly is. I think the Raiders' run game can be somewhat effective, but the Chargers' run defense is better this year. And I look at the other side of the ball. Yes, the Raiders' pass rush also got better, but the Chargers' offensive line is much stronger than the Raiders' offensive line is. I think Justin Herbert's able to move the ball up and down the field here. I think with Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen in the short game, along with hitting a couple plays to Mike Williams down the field. And I think the Chargers do enough to defend home field here and win 27-20. Moving on to the next matchup, we have the 5-seeded Baltimore Ravens at the 4-seeded Cincinnati Bengals in what would be an awesome divisional matchup. These teams play in Week 18, and I have the Bengals winning that game and coming out on top in the division. This game is in Cincinnati, and I think it'd be the ultimate offense versus defense matchup, that being the offense of the Bengals versus the defense of the Ravens. The Ravens secondary has significantly strengthened from last season. Of course, adding Marcus Williams in. They get Marlon Humphrey back for the full year, Marcus Peters back for the full year. That defense in general is just going to be significantly better than they were last year. But the Bengals offense also should be better than last year. So I think that's going to be an interesting matchup. And I actually think the Bengals can put up points in this game. but I don't know if it'll be quite as effective and efficient and as easy for them as it was both games last year. The game or the matchup, my bad, that I think would actually be the difference in the game is Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense versus the Cincinnati defense. And the Bengals defense is good, I think, but I don't think they're prepared for a Lamar Jackson led offense in that the threat he poses as a runner. I don't think they've got the linebackers for that. I don't think the Bengals necessarily have the guys to necessarily cover the triple tight end sets the Ravens can throw at the Bengals. And I think the Ravens, with their run game against the not great Bengals run defense, will be able to have some success as well. So I think they'll be able to keep Joe Burrow off the field for a bit. I think they'll be able to hit some explosive plays in both the run and pass game. And I think the Bengals offense, not being on the field a ton, playing a great defense, is going to stall out just a bit. And I actually am going to go with the upset here. I'm going to go for the 5 seed Baltimore Ravens to go to Cincinnati and win 28-27. And for the final AFC wildcard matchup, the 6 seeded Kansas City Chiefs at the 3rd seeded Indianapolis Colts. The Chiefs find themselves in unfamiliar territory here, going on the road in the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes. This is the first time they're facing a true road game in the playoffs with Mahomes under center. And I think this would be a really fun game. Again, I think you look at the Colts team that has a really strong defense going up against a Patrick Mahomes-led offense, and you're looking at Matt Ryan trying to go on another run, one of the last, if not the last, of his career against a Chiefs defense that we don't really know how good they are as of right now. So I look at this matchup. I think the Colts can do similar things to what the Ravens could do, in that I think they can dictate pace of play and they can run the ball with that really good run game that they have against the Chiefs run defense that is suspect. But the problem in this game for the Colts, I think, is Gus Bradley. And Gus Bradley's a pretty good defensive coordinator, but not against the Chiefs. Because of how he plays his coverage, I think Mahomes and Andy Reid are going to be able to exploit that because they have such a good hold and they're so used to facing that style of coverage that I don't think it would be proved to be very effective in this game. The Colts weren't great against tight ends last year, and Travis Kelce, I think, could exploit that. And I think this game gets into a shootout in the dome. And ultimately, for as much as I love Matt Ryan, and even though he is statistically one of the best playoff quarterbacks in NFL history, Patrick Mahomes is as well. And I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes in a shootout more times than not, especially against a Colts offense that I just don't think is quite as explosive as the Chiefs are, even without Tyreek Hill. So I'm going to take the Chiefs to win a high-scoring game. I think this will be a high-scoring game, even though the Colts have a very good defense. I think the Chiefs are going to put up a lot of points here, and I think Ryan's going to lead a balanced attack up and down the field. But I ultimately think the Chiefs are going to get the last drive here, and they're going to score, and they're going to win the game 34-31. The Chiefs advance to the divisional round. For the first AFC divisional matchup, we have the 5 seeded Baltimore Ravens at the 2 seeded Los Angeles Chargers. We saw these two teams play last season, and look, I love the Chargers. I have Justin Herbert winning MVP. I have Brandon Staley winning Coach of the Year. I have them winning the toughest division in football and getting to the divisional rounds after not even making the playoffs last year. And I think overall they're a better team than the Ravens. But I think the Ravens would win this game. I think the Ravens are a serious matchup issue for the Chargers. Again, the quarterback run is an issue for them. I don't know if they've got the linebackers to stop it. Derwin James, how are the Chargers going to utilize him here? Are they going to use him against Lamar and try to negate that facet of the Ravens offense? Or are they going to use him to cover one of the tight ends, probably Mark Andrews here? They can't do both, and the Ravens can exploit them in whichever way they don't use Derwin James, basically. So I think the Ravens are still going to be able to run the ball, and even though the Chargers have improved, I think the Ravens are much more capable of exploiting some of their run defense issues that I still do think exist to a degree than the Raiders are. I think the Ravens are going to be able to use the tight end successfully here. I do think the Ravens are going to be able to use the quarterback run successfully here. And I think defensively, the Ravens can get some pressure in the interior. I think the Ravens can lock up these Chargers receivers and make Herbert a bit indecisive and overall kind of confuse the Chargers offensive coordinator in this game with, I just think, a better coach side of the ball defensively than the Chargers are offensively. So I'm going to take the Ravens to upset the Chargers here 28-17, and the Ravens advance to the AFC Championship game. The other AFC matchup in the divisional round is a matchup that we've seen quite a bit over the last couple years, and that I think we're going to see again. The 6th-seeded Kansas City Chiefs travel to Buffalo to play the number 1-seeded Buffalo Bills. 1992, the Dallas Cowboys beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship game and go to the Super Bowl and win it. 1993, the Dallas Cowboys play the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. They beat Steve Young and the Niners again. They go to the Super Bowl and win it again. 1994, NFC Championship game. The 49ers finally take down the Cowboys, and they go to the Super Bowl, and they end up winning it. 2003, the Patriots beat the Colts in the AFC Championship game. Brady beats Manning. Patriots go to the Super Bowl and win. 2004, Patriots beat the Colts in the divisional rounds. Brady beats Manning again. Patriots go to the Super Bowl and win. 2006, Colts beat the Patriots in the 2006 AFC Championship game. Colts go to the Super Bowl and win. The third time seems to be the charm for these historic quarterback and team rivalry matchups, and that'll be the case once again. The Buffalo Bills will defeat the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. The Buffalo Bills are the more complete team. The Buffalo Bills are the better defensive team by a ton. The Buffalo Bills, I think, without Tyreek Hill in this game, will be able to successfully cover the Chiefs. I think that they can stop Travis Kelce, at least enough. I think they can stop the rest of these Chiefs' weapons with the secondary depth that they have. I think that the Bills have the offense to give the Chiefs all sorts of issues once again, with a run game that I think is being slept on, with more of a receiving element in that running backfield with James Cook, with the receiving core that I think will be playing better even now at this point in this season than they were at that point last season. I think Stephon Diggs is out for revenge in this game. I think Dawson Knox will be better. I think Gabe Davis will be better. I think Isaiah McKenzie will be better. I think the offensive line is not the best, but it's solid enough. And the Chiefs really didn't get much pressure in the last game, so I don't know why they would in this game. The Bills' offensive line's no worse from last year. And yes, I think the Bills have the better quarterback. Maybe not by a ton, but Josh Allen was just as good, if not better, than Mahomes last year in last year's game. And he has been just as good, if not better, than Mahomes the last 2 years, cumulatively. I think the Bills are out for revenge in this game. They're going to play pissed in this game. They know that the Chiefs are the team that they need to knock off, similar to what the Colts saw with the Patriots all those years ago, and even further long ago. The 49ers with the Dallas Cowboys. They know that that's the kind of rivalry they're in right now. Josh Allen knows that he's in a Manning-Brady rivalry right now with Mahomes, and they're going to take them out. In Buffalo, at home, the fans are going to be going crazy. I think the Bills are the more complete team. I think the Bills' offense scores a ton, and I think the Bills take out the Chiefs 34-24 and advance to the AFC Championship game. Meaning the AFC Championship game would be a matchup between the Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. What a matchup this would be. We saw these teams play just 2 seasons ago in the divisional rounds in the playoffs, and it was a back and forth game. It was a low scoring game. Nobody was really taking control. Lamar Jackson goes out, and then the Bills completely take over and really dominate the end of that game, defensively specifically. I look at this matchup, and I think a similar thing would happen. I think both of these teams are good to very good offensive teams in the Bills' case, but better defensive teams. I think this would be a defensive game, even as good as the two young quarterbacks are. But I think the team at home is the Buffalo Bills. The team with the stronger defense and offense is the Buffalo Bills. I think the Buffalo Bills have the answers to stop Lamar Jackson and the tight ends between their linebackers in coverage and their safeties nullifying big plays. They've got the corners to match up with the Ravens. I think they can stall the Ravens' offense here completely. And I look at the other side of the ball. Yes, the Ravens would cause some issues for the Bills with their secondary and their run defense, but I still think the Bills have enough to have some success on that side of the ball, more so than the Ravens would. And I think the Bills overall are just a more complete team and overall slightly more talented team than the Baltimore Ravens are. And at home, again, the home crowd, I just don't think the Bills would lose this game. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills to win 21-13 in a defensive game. And the Bills go back to the Super Bowl for the first time since 1993. Flipping it over to the NFC, starting off with the 7 seed at the 2 seed matchup, the 7 seeded New Orleans Saints at the 2 seeded Los Angeles Rams. Of course, this would be a huge grudge match, a huge rivalry game because of what happened a couple years ago in that NFC Championship game when the Saints feel and they probably did get robbed of a shot to play in the Super Bowl because of that just horrific pass interference call. With that said, they're not going to get their revenge. I think the Saints offensively just aren't quite consistent and good enough to beat the Rams in this game. The Saints defense, I think, would make life really tough on the Rams because the Rams offensive line has gotten worse, because Stafford seems to have some trouble with his elbow and the arthritis and whatever is going on there. He doesn't seem to be in completely 100% form entering the year. I think the Saints defense is absolutely outstanding. I don't love the Rams' depth at receiver or their run game necessarily. And I think the Saints would be able to hold the Rams offense really well. But I don't think the Saints would be able to score much at all in this game. I think the Rams would get a lot of pressure in this game. I think the Rams secondary can hold the Saints receivers enough, and I think the Rams' run defense is going to do enough in this game to slow down Alvin Kamara. Without the brilliant play calling of Sean Payton, I just don't see the Saints offense being able to muster up enough points to win this game. I think the Rams win it 21-10 and keep their chances of a repeat alive. The next wild card matchup would be a matchup that we've again seen before and quite often. It's the 5 seeded San Francisco 49ers at the 4 seeded Green Bay Packers. And the 49ers have played the Packers and Aaron Rodgers 4 times in the playoffs. They won all 4. This would be the 5th time, and they'll win again. Why? Because the Packers have not solved the fundamental issues that have plagued them the last couple times. They don't have a number 2 receiver. Instead, they don't even have a number 1 receiver anymore without Devontae Adams. They're going to be relying on those quick passes, those checkdowns to Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon out of the backfields with their running backs. And the problem with that is the 49ers are the strength of their defense, honestly, might be their linebackers going side to side and stopping those passes. They're great with stopping teams after the catch. And I look at that as the Packers' offensive line, I don't think is great in the interior. Now, will the Niners be able to completely exploit that? I don't know, because the Niners' interior rush itself isn't fantastic. But I think they would be able to an extent. I think D'Amico Ryans has solved this Matt LaFleur offense pretty well. He did very well in the second half of their first matchup last year, and he did excellently in the playoff game. And I look at the other side of the ball, and yeah, the Niners wouldn't score very much, but Trey Lance adds more of a ceiling, I think, than Jimmy Garoppolo did. I think Garoppolo was very predictable. And I look at it as I think Lance gives them more of a deep passing game and allows them to hit a couple more big plays here. And it gives them more in the run game with the quarterback run game that I think the Packers are somewhat vulnerable to. I look at this game, and for as big of a quarterback advantage as the Packers have on paper, I've lost trust in Aaron Rodgers in these big games after what I saw him do against the 49ers last January. And I think the 49ers are going to beat him again in Lambeau Field once again. Give me the 49ers to win it 20-17. The final matchup here would be the 6 seeded Minnesota Vikings at the 3 seeded Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles versus the Minnesota Vikings. This would be a fun game. You look at the Vikings and the explosiveness that this offense potentially has to offer against an Eagles team that is very well rounded. I think the difference, though, in this game, similar to how the Vikings struggled with the Niners a couple years ago, I think the difference in this game would be the lines of scrimmage. I don't think the Vikings' offensive line can block the Eagles' front. The Eagles' front is stout, and it's stacked, and it's loaded, and I don't think they're really blockable from just a mediocre offensive line. I think the Eagles can shut down the run game here pretty well, and I think the Eagles get pressure on Cousins, and they're able to disrupt the Vikings' passing game here. I look at the other side of the ball. I think the Eagles would be able to run it fairly successfully against Minnesota. I don't think Minnesota's an excellent run defense. They're fine, but they weren't great last year. And the Eagles' run game is pretty resilient and overall is pretty. I think they'd be able to run it on Minnesota pretty well. The Vikings were only 29th in run defense last year, so and you look at the other facet of the offensive game for the Eagles here. The pass game, they added AJ Brown. They still have Devontae Smith. I think Jalen Hurts with his arm is going to give them a couple big plays here in this game. Dallas Goedert, I think, over the middle of the fields would also be somewhat of an issue. Not they still have Eric Kendricks for that, but still he would prevent some mismatch. He would cause some mismatchers, I think. So I just think the Eagles at home in a cold game for a dome team traveling to a cold weather team in a cold weather game. I'm going to take the Eagles to win here. It's going to be low scoring. I'll go 23-13, but the Eagles move on to the divisional round. Moving on to the divisional round, the third seeded Philadelphia Eagles travel to sunny Inglewood, California to play the defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams in what would be a really interesting game. I look at this matchup and I think the Eagles have a lot of advantages in this game. I think the Eagles, with their run game, would be able to have success on the edges. I think the Rams have lost some athleticism in the run game defensively with the loss of Von Miller. They're great in the interior at stopping the run, but how good are they on the outside? I'm not completely sure. I look at the issues Dallas Goedert, a guy like that, may present for a slower Bobby Wagner. I'm not sure how that's going to go. I look at some of the nice receiver depth of the Eagles with a guy like Quez Watkins, who I think could have a better year than some think, having some success in this game. I look at Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, the problems they could present for a Rams secondary that really outside of Jalen Ramsey isn't that good. And I look at the other side of the ball, the Rams' offensive line has gotten worse. I think the Eagles' defensive line could swallow them up here, make them one dimensional, and put a lot of pressure on Matt Stafford. And the Eagles' secondary has also improved. You look at the additions they've made at safety, you look at the additions they've made at corner. I think that they could cause some issues for the Rams' passing game in this game. You know, I love Sean McVay. I think he's the best coach in the NFL. But I just think the Eagles are a difficult matchup with how Jalen Hurts is able to use the quarterback run and cause some issues in that facet as well. You saw how Kyler Murray gave them some issues earlier in the year last season. You've seen how Lamar Jackson has given them issues in the past. Even Tyler Huntley, to an extent, did last year. I think Jalen Hurts could replicate some of that, and I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to knock off the champs to end the chance at a repeat and to advance to the NFC Championship game in what would be a really crazy, awesome, memorable game. But I think the Eagles ended up getting it done. I think the Eagles are going to win this game 31-28. The other matchup in the divisional rounds in the NFC, the 5 seeded San Francisco 49ers at the number 1 seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady. Tom Brady gets to face his childhood team, the San Francisco 49ers, where his idol Joe Montana played and where he grew up. And what a matchup this would be in what could potentially be Tom Brady's last game as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer and in the NFL. I don't know why I said Tampa Bay Buccaneer. It would be, if they lose, his last game in the NFL because we know he's going to retire at the end of the year like 99.9% because of the announcer deal he signed along with everything else that's happened. Uh, Look, I've made a prediction video with Lenny on the Late On podcast about a week ago now, talking about this game and why I thought the 49ers would win. And I've looked at it, examined it. I've gone back and forth on these teams and how this matchup would go. Ultimately, I feel like a fraud for doing this. I'm taking the Bucs in this game. I've changed my mind. I think the Buccaneers would struggle to score potentially because I love the 49ers defense this year. But everyone's talking about how weak the Bucs offensive line is. And it's only weak in the interior to an extent. They still have Shaq Mason. Hainsey, we'll see how good he is. And then Gadecki, we'll see how good he is at the guard and center position, left guard and center. But they're very good to elite at every other offensive line position. And the Niners are significantly stronger on the edge than they are on the interior on the defensive line. Like Nick Bosa is their guy on that defensive line, and he's going to have to see Tristan Wirfs, so he's pretty much going to not have too much of an impact as a pass rusher, at least. I look at the Bucks; they want to throw the ball, and I still think the Niners secondary has deficiencies. And I look at the other side of the ball. I think what the Niners want to do offensively plays right into the Bucks' hands. The Bucks secondary is better this year. It's deeper. It's better. It's better at safety. It's better at corner. Their linebackers, I think, are going to be more motivated this year, specifically Devin White. Their pass rush is more athletic. Their run defense is more athletic. They're not just big 300-pound guys that can't rush the passer, aren't fast enough to stop the outside runs. No, they can stop outside runs now. They can rush the passer better. They're better at that now. The Bucks, I think, are the perfect defensive matchup for what Shanahan and that offense are going to want to do in this game. To me, these are the two most complete overall teams, offense, defense wise, in the NFC. But I think the Bucks are better on both sides of the ball, and at home, where that offense with Brady usually hums. And it's Tom Brady's last year. You've got to think, even with everything that's happened, there's still going to be some motivation there. I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to beat the San Francisco 49ers 24-23 and advance to the NFC Championship game. My NFC Championship matchup is the third seeded Philadelphia Eagles at the number one seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And there's going to be one side of the ball that people are looking at as the primary matchup, and rightfully so. It's the Bucs offense and Tom Brady and those weapons and that offensive line against the Eagles and that defensive line and that secondary, right? And we've seen teams with strong interior rushes give Brady tons of issues in the past. You look specifically, just the two premier examples, to the New York Giants in Super Bowl 42 in 2007 and Super Bowl 46 in 2011. And those teams had great interior defensive linemen, especially in those games, that could beat the Patriots' interior offensive line, got pressure on Brady, disrupted him, and thus disrupted the flow of the passing game and offense, and really shut the Patriots down for large portions in almost all of both of those games. They scored, I think, 14 and 17 points in those games after being historically great offensively in both of those seasons. I look at the Eagles having the ability to do the same thing. They can make the Bucks one-dimensional. They can get pressure on Brady. I don't know if their secondary would necessarily be the best ideal matchup for this game, but I think they've got enough players to at least somewhat hold their own against the Bucks and not completely get embarrassed like they did last year. But games like this are often won on the other side of the ball, and flipping it back to Super Bowl 42 and Super Bowl 46, what the Giants had in those games, and as critical as I've been on him at times, Eli Manning in Super Bowl 42 in 2007, and especially in Super Bowl 46 in 2011, made a couple huge big-time throws in those games to win the Giants those Super Bowls and help them defeat the Patriots in those games. I don't know if Jalen Hurts can do that. And I look at this Bucks defense, they're going to be one of the best in football. I think they're suited to what Jalen Hurts likes to do, which is speed. You know, he doesn't run as much with power like a Josh Allen, but he runs with speed. And the Bucks defense is perfectly suited, just like last year, to stop the speedy quarterback run. They're going to be better with outside runs this year, with more of an athletic defensive line. I think they're going to be able to stop the inside run. And I look at the Eagles receivers. Yes, they can cause the Bucks some issues, but I think the Bucks secondary is better this year. And I think the Bucks have the ability to make the Eagles offense really stumble in this game. You're also looking at a cold weather team going to warm weather environments back-to-back in back-to-back games, and what kind of effect can that have on this team? So I look at it. I think the Bucks are going to win another pretty low-scoring game. I'm going to take the Bucks to win 21-17, and yeah, I'm going to take the Bucks to win the NFC. Look, I did not expect to be picking the Bucks to go to the Super Bowl as early or as late as like a week ago, but I've looked at it. And I just think the Bucks are the best team in the NFC this year, and I think they're going to represent the NFC in Glendale. And my Super Bowl matchup is the Buffalo Bills representing the AFC and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers representing the NFC. Yes, I'm picking both conference favorites to represent the Super Bowl this year in Glendale. I'm known to pick chalk, and I'm doing it again here. I just think these are the two best teams in football. I look at this game, probably should have happened last year, at least could have. Probably should have been on the Bills' part. If they had beaten the Chiefs, I think they'd have gone to the Super Bowl. Tampa Bay was probably just too injured to beat the Rams last year, if we're being completely honest. But I did feel when they were healthy, they were one of, if not the best teams in football last year. So I think this year it's going to be an unbelievable game. I mean, these are the only two teams I believe that are top five offensively and defensively. These are the two best quarterbacks in the game today, Tom Brady and Josh Allen. Two very strong overall rosters and two pretty deep teams, two very well balanced teams. Um, Two of the best teams over the last couple years, and I think they're going to break through and make it this year. Bucks have already broken through, but I think the Bills are going to break through this year. Look at the matchup, though, pretty even. I mean, they played last year. The Bucks dominated the early portions of that game. The Bills stormed back and got it all the way to overtime, but the Bucks were able to beat them in overtime. And Tom Brady has owned the Bills. This would be Tom Brady's last game. Tom Brady has owned the Bills his entire career. But you look at how he's done against Sean McDermott, and even though his record's an outstanding, uh, he hasn't done very well statistically. The Bills have really rendered Brady more ineffective than he's been since 2017 when he's playing them. And even last year, I felt like the offense for the Bucks sputtered quite a bit towards the end of the game until that big after the catch play in overtime. The Bills are going to have Trey White back in this game. Their secondary is very deep. They've got, I think, maybe the best secondary in football, and a secondary that I think is perfectly equipped to handle the Bucks receivers. I look at the Bucks, no Gronk, and losing an element like that, a reliable, one of the best big game players ever, and losing him in a game like this, I think that'd be tough. I don't know how effectively the Bucks would able to run it in this game because I think the Bills' run defense is going to be better this year, and they were already decent last year. And I look at the other side of the ball. I do think the power and strength and physicality of Josh Allen in the run game would give them some issues, but I think the deep passing game of Josh Allen would be the difference offensively for the Bills. You saw what he was able to do at the end of the last game that they played, and understand I think the Bucks secondary is going to be better, but I think Josh Allen in this passing game is going to be more consistent and better as well. And I look at James Cook, another added element that they have in this game, someone that stepped up for Georgia in the national championship. I think he'll have somewhat of an impact on this game as well. I look at Stephon Diggs again as a superstar receiver that I do think could give the Bucks some issues in this game. And overall, I think it's a really even, well-balanced game. I think, though, the Bills go on to finally defeat their owner, Tom Brady, in his final game. And Tom Brady hands Josh Allen the baton of best quarterback in football and face and, you know, kind of poster child, poster boy of the NFL. And the Bills win the Super Bowl. I have the Bills being the Super Bowl 57 champions this year. They are my prediction. I think they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 28-24. And my Super Bowl MVP, it's going to be Josh Allen. He's going to throw 3 touchdowns, and he's going to lead the Bills to the Super Bowl in this game. I felt the Bills would win the Super Bowl really since the offseason began, honestly. I looked at this team. I thought last year that they could have won it. They wasted one of the greatest, probably the greatest multi-game playoff run ever from Josh Allen last year. I think they're motivated this year. I think they're playing with the biggest chip on their shoulder of anybody this year. And I think they're going to come out firing and angry. And I think this is just such a good roster and good coaching staff. And I think they're going to win it. I think they're the favorite team. They have the target on their back. This is their year to do it. And I think they're going to get it done this year. So the Bills, Super Bowl 57 champions for me for the 2022 season. Let me know in the comments below who you think will make the Super Bowl this year, who's going to win the Super Bowl. Let me know your predictions in the comment section below. Make sure, again, like this video, subscribe to this channel for more NFL content, and have a great day. God bless.